Hello.
Hello, and for those of us on Twitch right now, just give me a second. I'm gonna somehow turn on this camera. Aha! Here we go. Welcome. For those of you watching on Twitch, I'm Karina, coming at you from the GameDev Cafe with Jillian Mood, who I will now open up her window so you can actually see her again. Hi, Jillian. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everybody.
Hope everyone is able to hear us. If there's any sound issues, just let us know. I always like to joke that it's a problem with all streamers, but just let us know in the Twitch chat. If we're quiet, I will do my best to turn us up a little bit. And if I'm blasting your ears, you guys just let me know. So we're here today, like I said, with Jillian Mood. I met Jillian actually through a couple GDC events this year, but I know that you've been involved in the games community long before then. Ironically, she is also someone who's involved with a game that I've recently kind of fallen in love with, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you can go back through our Twitch streams and sort of see what we've covered in the past once we get there to know which game we're talking about. But in the meantime, Jillian is involved in about a million different ways in the game community. I sort of affectionately refer to her as someone who's a community leader. I know that title is something that people are hesitant to maybe pick up, but basically someone who helps the games community go places, get bigger, can make connections, just function at its very, very core. But without putting words in your mouth, Jillian, maybe
that's okay with me.
That one sounds good. But maybe you want to explain to us just sort of what your role is, I guess, in sort of your opinion or in your official capacity. And I know you work with a lot of different organizations, so if you want to, just sort of explain, I guess, what you actually do, if that's possible.
I'll do it as quickly as I can. So, kind of my background in games, I got into the game industry, about 7 years ago. I had been in TV first, running an HR department for a large television company, and I liked the passion, creativity, but I didn't like sort of the cutthroat kind of TV film world. Found video games, and I had been a big gamer growing up, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be in video games for the rest of my life for sure. And so I started sort of as an HR director, leading HR in studios for quite a few years. And I found towards the end of doing that, I was kind of leaving internal stuff and doing a lot more external stuff. So I was sort of helping the company position themselves in the industry to hire the best talent, to get a lot of press, like really branding the company, and then also really helping local communities grow, the local game community. And so after being, sort of HR director for 5 years, I decided a couple of years ago I wanted to leave and find a new role that was more external. So I left a studio, and I actually took a little bit of time. And so during that time, I found the International Game Developers Association, which is, the global association, biggest association for game developers in the world, helping improve the lives of developers all over the world. And so I joined them, heading up partner and member relations. And so what I do is I work with studios all over the world to help them improve the lives of their developers, and work on a ton of initiatives, mentor initiatives, diversity initiatives, and help the membership by giving them things to help them in their career. So whether it's access to conferences, networking, meeting experts, so a variety of things, which was really exciting for me because I could kind of tailor that role. While that was happening, I was like, okay, this is great. It's not something, super full time. So I had a contact that was starting their own studio. And a group of developers that were starting their own studio, and they were like, wow, we're starting our own indie studio. We don't know how to market. We don't know how to position our company. We don't know how to get fans or engage with them. We don't know how to do business development or partnerships. And I was like, holy shit, I can do all of those things. And so it was kind of like an awakening. And I offered them kind of an indie startup package. And I was like, okay, I'm going to help you. I helped them with the marketing and with the hiring and building a really positive culture, which I'm huge on positive cultures. And so after that, I kind of said, I didn't market it too much, but I incorporated and started my own company and kind of offered this indie startup package. And then like the first month, I had like 7 new studios writing to me saying, we want we want help with these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is a niche market. There's so many indie studios starting up. So many of them need help with these things. And for me to be able to provide that, at a much lower cost than if they were getting experts in each of those fields, it was kind of like just a really happy place. So, I've been doing that for almost 2 years as well. So right now, I'm running my own company, doing HR and PR marketing for studios. I'm heading up partner and member relations with IGDA, which I love. And also during this couple of years, I got into really positive initiatives in the industry. So I started OJam with several people, which is Ottawa's Game Jam.
Very cool.
And so we just finished our third Game Jam. And it's not like, oh, let's get everyone together and make games all weekend. It's let's make this an amazing weekend, but let's really help the developers and artists there learn new skills, learn teamwork, and come out of it learning something. So, I'll probably say mentorship like 1 million times. Bringing in, how do you do that? So bringing in industry leaders that have been, in the industry 15, 20 years to come in and mentor the teams during brainstorm phase.
Right.
Bring in game artists to produce art assets for the developer-focused teams all weekend. And one thing I noticed after the first OJam was like the developers and artists were like, we have learned how to communicate with each other. This is going to help us in our careers and during time crunch and figuring out priorities. So OJam's been a huge success, and that's been growing each year, which is amazing. And then a couple other of the initiatives that I'm really proud of is Girl Force. So Girl Force has just finished its third semester, and actually Jason Nguyen's, who's an amazing indie that heads up Breakfall here in Ottawa, it was his brainchild. Because cool. I think he had said, I really want to hire more females in my studio. I can't find them in the local industry. Oh, this is a huge problem. What could somebody like me do to help? And I was like, that's amazing.
Perfect.
Like when you look at sort of an underrepresented group, everyone should be helping support that growth. Like diversity benefits everyone. And so when he asked me to come on board and help fund this initiative, I was like, absolutely. And so Girl Force is a group of industry people in Ottawa. They mentor and train, females and non-binary people how to make video games from scratch. You don't need any technical experience. It's a really positive, learning environment. And it's just finished its third class and heading into its fourth.
Awesome.
Amazing.
That's so cool.
And then the last thing, Capital Gaming Expo.
Woohoo!
I'm so excited about. So it was funny because like I had been working on conferences like, OIGC and conferences for years, always running them for other people, never being able to make the final decisions. And it was so funny, like, with various conferences, I was like, oh, we should be doing this way. We should do this initiative. This is what the industry wants. And so not having that chance to really do that had been frustrating. So when I bought Capital Gaming Expo, it was kind of like a perfect timing. So I was able to take over that conference, and last year was the first year, well, actually April. So now I run that conference.
Awesome.
So that's the gamut.
That's the nutshell. And I guess of all of those roles, is there one that you're sort of more involved with currently at the moment, or is it all sort of equally? Do they all eat up your time equally, and you just, I guess, never sleep?
So in terms of like how, my time, I wouldn't say one of them gets the most anytime. Like I'm really, really, really lucky because, and I'm so happy about this, like I am super hyperactive and I imagine I'm ADD. I've never been diagnosed. I'm assuming that's what it is. I think it's a gift.
It comes naturally.
It does. So I'm really fortunate that I'm able to, focus on certain things for a period of time and really give it my all and be really effective. And so when I get up in the day, like I'll start with, say, IGDA, for example, I'll put 3 or 4 hours of focused time on that. And then I'll switch whatever based on priorities. But, being able to really plan my day and focus, like I'm able to do 3 full-time jobs, working from home and planning my own schedule. That's why it's, results are so much more important than a 9-to-5 office job.
Totally.
So, In terms of time, IGDA, Jillian Mood and Partners, they get a lot of equal times. And then depending on events, I can fluctuate that. And, in my various clients as well. I'm fortunate that I have a great team too. Like,
Right.
and I'm sure that, Mike has said this too, when you're building up your initiatives in your company, whatever you suck at, you find the person that loves it. Like, I find people that I was like, this is what I suck at. You're amazing at it. Okay, hired and complete control. Let's get on the same page vision-wise.
Totally.
And then I trust you. And I don't ever want to see the day-to-day spreadsheets that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of how it's all working.
Interesting.
Which is amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that it helps, as you said, that you do have a team, and also that you are able to network with so many people through these organizations, as you say,
Yes.
to get it done. Get her done.
Get her done.
That's really cool. It's impressive nonetheless. No matter how much help you have, that's quite a large menu to offer, and I think especially when it comes to events, I know personally that there's a lot of risk or at least responsibility involved, so
Totally.
It's high pressure, and you wear it well. Is there anything that's kind of weird or wacky about what you do that people might not really appreciate from the outside looking in?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of think I'm peculiar anyway. Like, I'm certainly weird. And maybe this isn't maybe super weird, but one thing that I do that really helps me is I get up in the morning and I have like this beautiful notebook that's like my whole entire life. I'm constantly writing in this thing. So every day I usually start with a list of about 4 pages, and I spend time writing it. And through the day, I organize myself with a pen and paper. And at night before I go to bed, like, there's probably 1 million things that need to get done all day, but I have like color codes and little like things that I use to like signal which needs to be done. And these lists, like, I'll have to send you a copy of one. Like, it's you look at it and you're like, this isn't even English. Like, it's so coded. But before I go to bed, I kind of look it over, and I know on this list exactly what needs to be done the next day. I have, I know what's going to be done at 7, what's going to be done at 8, what's going to be done at 9. Like, throughout the day, I know exactly what I'll be doing, exactly what will get done. So when I go to bed tonight, I'll go over this list. So tomorrow morning when I get up, I know exactly what I'll finish at the end of the day and what priorities need to get done. So people think that I'm very disorganized because I'm like all over the place, and I'm not good with online, Trello and things like that. I'm not good with it, but like, I am so OCD organized with like my pen and paper. It's always with me too. Like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. It better be in my pocket. So in case I have a brainstorm buying groceries, I need to write it down immediately.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so it's a very specialized system. No, and it's interesting how, I mean, effective professionals tend to have these weird systems that other people, again, maybe don't appreciate looking in, but when it works, it works really, really well. That's really interesting. Is this something that you would say you've always like had in your nature, like since you were a kid? If you've been like this, or is it by necessity?
It's so funny that you asked that. I call my mom every day, right? So I called my mom the other day, and I was like, she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, Mom, I am making the most epic list today. And she was like, oh, you and your list.
Of course you are.
Right? And then, so this is funny. She said, oh no, I asked her, I said, was I always like, when did I start making these lists? Because they've always been something that I've done or remember, but I didn't know when it started. And she said, Jillian, before you started going to school, you were always sitting around writing. And I said, Mom, was I making pictures? Like, what was I? And she was like, no, you were writing words. And I was like, what did a 4-year-old have to make lists about?
To-do lists. You were busy even back then.
I know. And I knew that this was all going to happen, and world domination.
I guess so. Yes.
And I was like, what were on those lists? What were the words? And she's like, well, I never kept one. And I was like, how would you not be interested in what a 4-year-old is writing all the time?
She totally dismissed it. See, she didn't appreciate the system. It was this beautiful mapped out piece of organization. She just thought it was scribbles. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. I guess, this might be a foolish question to ask since you never really know, but is there a job that you sort of saw yourself doing when you were younger? Or did you always think that you'd be sort of into the marketing, sort of PR shtick?
So, I kind of jumped around a little bit when I was in junior high. Like, I had thought I was going to be a writer, and then I wanted to be a veterinarian. And so I job shadowed at a veterinary clinic, and I things don't make me nauseous, but I was actually there with my best friend, and we were watching a cat being neutered and declawed, and it's a horrendous thing. And I was standing there, and I just passed out, like I fainted.
Oh, wow.
And that's the only time in my entire life I've ever fainted. And so I dropped, and my best friend Heather who's been my best friend for like 30 years. She goes, "Oh, Jill's dead."
Might not be the job for you.
So I wasn't. I just fainted. But after that, they only let me walk the dogs after that. But,
okay.
Which was way better. And so after that, like I kind of jumped around a bit. And then it was actually interesting. Like in high school, I always had this thought in my head that, okay, well, there's smart people and there's not smart people, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I always did fine in school, but there was nothing that I was kind of leaning towards. Mm-hmm. And so, in high school, like my social life was everything sports. But what's interesting is that I joined student council so I could run women's intramurals and like plan, rugby and all that fun stuff. So I was kind of planning back then.
Scheduling, yep.
Totally. And so after high school, I took a year off. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I joined the reserves. I was cool. I'll just put myself through hell because that will help me grow up. Mm-hmm. And I did boot camp, and it was awesome. Push-ups are like my favorite thing in the world. So
cool.
When I left, I could do like 55 push-ups in a minute, which was really fun. But
I think I could do 5.
We should do a push-up contest.
No, we shouldn't. You win. You already win, but we will someday if you really want to see me do it.
At GDC, Karina, I'm going to organize this. I'm
Let's
putting
do
it on
it.
the list.
Let's do it. I feel like at GDC I may not come up that short. I feel like I have a lot of time to prepare, and
this is happening.
Yes, I think so. Jillian Boot Camp. See, she's also a motivational speaker. If you haven't noticed, everybody, she's convinced me to exercise. That's pretty good.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. That's funny. So through boot camp too. So you've really kind of done it all.
I think so. I mean, the Army wasn't for me because people yelling at me all the time, and then it was a short-sighted thing. Mm-hmm. But then I was fortunate enough. I went to university. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Wrote my LSAT thinking I'd be a lawyer until I saw the amount of paperwork. But I started university, and it was amazing. This was luck. I picked the Mount St. Vincent in Halifax, and it was a very small business-focused university focused towards women in business.
Okay.
And I was just like, I'll try this instead of one of the big universities. And I did. It was surprising because I'd never done well marks-wise, and I don't think marks are that important. But for some, first time ever, I was getting straight A's and stuff, and it was
kind of thrived. Yeah.
Because I loved it. I loved, the business and the management, the leadership type learning. And thank God I found that because, as soon as I graduated, I sort of entered into business and HR and a lot of leadership roles.
Nice.
Which I wouldn't have found without education.
Right.
My partner is like, I hate school. And I found he's so anti-education. And I'm like, it helped me figure out what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody's different.
It's interesting, and that's, I think, very true, especially in a sense of it's not necessarily marks, although you had high marks, it's not necessarily just marks oriented. It's when you start to feel that sort of passion ignited and suddenly it matters to you, that generally is when your marks go up. I was a teacher for 5 years, so you don't have to convince me. Yeah, and I wasn't really a student who loved school either, so I'm sort of both minds. It's like I'm very torn between, I guess, you and your husband's point of view.
Yeah.
We should probably mention for everyone we're talking about Mike Mood when we bring up Jillian's husband, who was one of the creators of Bendy and the Ink Machine, and we interviewed him and the Meatly a couple weeks back. It's up on our YouTube, but we'll link it up when we post this.
Definitely.
But that's really fascinating, Jillian.
Yeah.
I guess, given that, you mentioned sort of having to find your passion and you didn't always know exactly what you want to do, have you faced any, like, what you might call unique challenges along the way to sort of getting to this point where, as you say, you're sort of like organized and doing exactly what you're focused on, and
totally. There was definitely challenges, and for me, it was surprise challenges. So when I left TV and I was sort of working in a studio, you're the happy HR director, and that's amazing, and you're doing great things. When I was in a studio and I was starting to progress and move above that. Right. So I was taking over PR. I was doing a lot more operations and leadership stuff. And it was kind of at this time I was like, oh, I definitely want to be a CEO or run my own company someday. Like I was loving, helping a studio grow and thinking all aspects. And so when I started to leave the happy little safe HR person and grow to a bigger kind of level of more power, I was surprised of some of the reactions from my male colleagues.
Oh, really?
And I'm very, and for me, I've always been very, oh, women, if you can't get ahead, you're not strong enough. Like, for sure you can. There's no big issues in the industry, and the game industry is fine. Everyone seems fine until I went through it. And then I was like, holy shit, I was surprised by the fact that there was issues kind of moving forward, and there was some issues with a female moving forward. Not from everyone, and most people were supportive, but there were some few instances. And it was really hard for me, feeling in a position of being bullied and things like that. And I'm a very strong person, and it really affected me. So I can imagine how hard it's been, for people to go through. And
for others,
I think that was an important thing for me to go through for doing the work that I'm doing in the IGDA, to experience a lot of that firsthand.
That's true.
Because I hadn't thought it was bad beforehand, or I hadn't gone through it. And that's like a lot of things. So that was just a sort of a surprise. But, you kind of get through it and you realize there is going to be problems. There are going to be people that, that want to take you down, all genders, everyone. But, most people are great, but there's always going to be issues. So I think realizing at some point, like, you can't make everyone like you. There's some people that just aren't going to, and you need to deal with that. So that's, been definitely a lesson.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And as you say, a lesson that a lot of people have to learn, not always just women, but a lot of people who aren't familiar with, I guess, some of the opinions that people have in the industry, because it can be old school in some cases. I know in television especially, there's sort of an established trust there. Would you say that has pushed you towards more indie games and an indie focus, or do you just really like supporting indies?
So, that's a really good question. That specifically hasn't pushed me towards that, and I find, like, honestly, the game industry, indie, AAA, all areas, is improving. It's getting better every year, and I think that's amazing. And a lot of the larger studios are helping create that change and moving that ahead, which is great.
I agree.
My focus has been on the indies, and I think I just really connect with indie development. I kind of see firsthand the passion they go through, the challenges. I can see how quickly I can benefit them more than a large studio.
Right.
You go into a large studio, and if you're working in a company of 1,000 or whatever, your impact is much lower, than when you go into a indie studio of 7 developers, and you can really help them.
Absolutely.
Plus, indie games are awesome. Like, it's a great movement. In Ottawa, for example, like, the larger studios haven't thrived, have cut back, aren't doing well, and the indie community is thriving. Like, Ottawa's kicking ass in the indie scene. And I think that's amazing, and I think that's so inspiring. Like, there's a lot of fantastic games coming out of Ottawa, and I think that's because Ottawa indies, the community's just small enough that we get to know each other. We have this mentality of sharing and collaborating and supporting each other, which I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm not sure, this hasn't been super announced yet, but there's a group of indie studios in Ottawa, and we're all getting together in one space. And
fantastic.
Steel Crate, Breakfall, Snowden Studios, the Meatly Games, Jillian and Partners, and we're going to have a hub for community events and resources, and really help each other.
Awesome.
So that's going to be really exciting. But Ottawa's been really kicking butt.
That really helps to establish it, for sure.
Right?
I mean, that's how it caught its footing in a lot of other cities, right? It's like a group of people got together and collectively pushed it forward. Wow, that's really exciting. And do you have a timeline on that? Is that happening like in the very near future?
Pretty soon. Like, that will be happening in the fall. And then Ottawa will see, a lot more events happening there. And I think it'll just be a great space for even just more collaboration and more sharing. I've noticed, like, from us being back and forth between Ottawa and Montreal, we've got to spend some time in gameplay space in Montreal, which is a similar kind of setup, and seeing various lunch and learns, or, hey, everyone, I have a new build of a game and I need some feedback, or whatever it is, getting that expert feedback around and that support and stuff really makes a difference. When you've got an indie, an indie or a team of indies that are kind of working alone in the basement or whatever, often they have a very diverse group or whatever, getting out around other people, different types of people as well, which really helps with the creative process. It helps everyone evolve, for sure.
Absolutely. And is this a place where you guys are going to be opening up to other studios as well?
So yes, there should be space for other studios. And also we're hoping, depending on, NDAs and things like that, like we're hoping to have people that are able to drop in as well.
Nice.
So I think sort of the finer things are going to be, kind of looked into, but there are, I know, a couple openings for a small studio or two. So we'll make sure to be blasting that information out a lot too. So
exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, can't wait for the grand opening party.
Oh, I have to plan that, right?
Yes, after all your other stuff. Yes, I'm sure you're quite busy. No, that's a great initiative, and I'm sure that it's well needed in the city. As you say, there's such a huge community there already that it's probably something that's long overdue. Do you have a cool name that you guys are considering?
So, I personally have a cool name. So, Karina, this is actually funny. So this conversation came up at GDC. I think it was the day that I met you at the Game Nation, the Canada party.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that day? So Mike and I were actually talking to Jean Sylvain from Snowden, and we were like, hey, wouldn't it be all cool if we were all in one space? And he was like, I need a new space. And he really kind of headed up making that happen. Nice. In terms of a name, I wanted it to be called The Collective. The Collective. I think that's super cool.
I like that. It does sound a little sinister, but I know you, and I know that you're not sinister, so it's okay. The Collective.
The Collective.
You all have to be like in swivel chairs so you can like turn around ominously.
I
actually really like that. Oh, I kind of like it, and plus it works in Ottawa, because I don't think that I'm trying to think of like another organization that is associated with Ottawa, the Collective. I can't really think of anything. Yeah, I've only heard of down in California. There's like an arts collective that calls themselves that, but that's really far away, and that's American, so so different.
Fine.
No, that's really cool. And you mentioned that there's going to be events held there. So is this going to tie into like OJam and Girl Force and like other things that you're working on?
So Girl Force classes, it looks like we'll be moving there, which is fantastic.
Nice.
I mean, we're at the Innovation Center in Ottawa right now, which is such a great space, but now the Innovation Center is like trying to charge Girl Force like a lot of money for classes, and it's like, come on.
It's in high demand, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe Girl Force classes will go there. IGDA Ottawa, the monthly events will be there. Which those events have been going really well, and a lot of new faces have been coming out. Like we've been getting a lot of new people entering in the industry or interested in the industry coming out, which I think is great that we're creating that welcoming environment. Probably other events, Ottawa Unity User Group.
Oh, nice.
Which Mike runs, and I kind of support there. What else? Probably. I don't know if it'll fit OJam. Probably all of the things.
OJam might be getting too big for that. You're right, because it's going into, I guess so this was its third year, so it's going into its fourth, correct? Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Yes. That's really exciting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit Capital Gaming Expo, because you mentioned that you took it over for the first time last year. I didn't get to attend, but I lived vicariously through all the social media feeds and all the attention that you got. So I considered it a huge success, even though I wasn't there. I'm definitely going to be there this year. Absolutely. And I don't know if everyone's sort of checked out the website or if you've already made the announcement, but it is announced for April 6th to 8th. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So so we're doing it April 6th to 8th next year. And honestly, like I wasn't sure how the first year would go. Like it's your first year, we planned it within, 3 months. But I couldn't have been happier. One of the focuses that I really put on it was, this is a celebration of Canadian games. So the Expo had about 70 Canadian, like either studios or artists.
Good
I know.
turnout.
Yeah, I was so happy about that. And, we had like the Steel Crate Games, the Break Falls, the Benny and the Ink Machine, like really thriving companies, which is amazing. And it was to really celebrate that kind of indie environment. On the conference side, and I'm especially proud of this, I wanted to set up a conference that really taught what Canada does best, and that's starting and running studios. Like Canada is amazing at creating and running studios, entrepreneurship, and so I kind of handpicked all of the speakers, and I picked speakers that are very successful in running studios for various reasons. So people would come in and they would learn how to approach funding your game, how to approach starting a company, picking a legal team, hiring a team, creating a positive culture, marketing your game, partnerships. How do you find partnerships? Like, I wanted people to come in and learn A to Z how to run a studio from the people that have done it. They've been through it. And one thing the focus was on too, what not to do. Like, don't waste your time on these things, but really and it was amazing to see a lot of the people come out of the conference like, I've learned so much. And so that was the goal. And that's definitely going to be a theme that I continue with CGX is CGX is going to focus on teaching you how to be successful in your studio and hire the right team and look for the right people in a variety of ways. And low cost. Like conferences are getting ridiculous. CGX was $165, and the content I think was just
great
as good
value.
as ever.
Yeah.
And that's really important to me. So I was so proud with that. We did it at the and the feedback coming in was amazing. Like press, some of the press called it the conference Canada needs, which awesome. There isn't that brings together the fans, the developers, and that positive, motivating, kind of messaging.
Totally.
And also for me, like, it was really important to have a lot of diversity and have people feel really included and welcome there. And we nailed it. Like it was kind of just a beautiful experience for me. And so for next year, so we have announced it April 6th to 8th. It's moving to the Ottawa Events and Convention Center, so it's a beautiful space.
Big, right? That's a big space.
It's big and it's beautiful. Like, I want the speakers coming in to be at the Marriott right there. Like, we cover the hotel rooms. We're gonna have, we're going to keep costs low again. It's going to be the same positive messaging, and we're gonna have companies like we're gonna have a lot of the local indie companies and local studios. We're gonna have the bigger companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Shopify get involved too. So it's tech and gaming, all Canadian, and so I'm excited for that.
That's great.
I also kind of have another super exciting CGX announcement.
Oh, that's right. And you teased this. I don't even know what it is yet. So I'm in the dark too, everyone. Let's have it. Oh, exciting.
Okay, I know. So I've been kind of thinking a lot about what came after CGX and how much the industry really needs this. CGX is actually currently being rebranded right now.
Okay.
And it's going to be changing from the Capital Gaming Expo to the Canadian Gaming Expo.
Yay!
We will be actually doing events in different cities all over Canada.
Oh, that's so exciting. You're going to be working so much harder.
I can't wait!
Yay!
All of the lists!
More lists! That's awesome. Now, is this something that you've already planned and mapped out, or is it just in discussions, or how much can you tell us?
I'll tell you a little bit more. So it came up, actually, I was doing some work in Toronto, and there was a big studio there that said, hey, why isn't CGX in Toronto?
Where's our expo?
We'd love to fund something like this, and it just sort of got my juices going. So what I did was I kind of started reaching out very strategically to industry leaders and industry people in some of the big cities, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, and started reaching out. And people were like, "We want to get involved. The industry needs this." Because obviously, when you start an event, you have to make sure the industry wants it. For sure, but you need to get the leaders on board. Like you need to work with them, collaborate with them. They'll only make it better. Like this industry is all about collaboration. And so I was so thrilled with the positive response that came back. So I'm definitely planning CGX type events in various cities, mapping out kind of the dates and things like that. I also want to go to Halifax, by the way. But I'm doing a small event coming up in October in Montreal.
Nice.
So what it's going to be this beautiful indie kind of weekend, and it's going to be kind of like a workshop day where we have some industry leaders coming in to do the whole, like, how to run a studio. We have like a former studio head from Warner Brothers. We have one of the studio heads from Hibernum coming in.
Nice.
Jason Newlands and Ben Kane.
Awesome.
Mike Mood obviously is going to be coming back, and I'm reaching out to some of the other industry leaders as well. So it's going to be a day of like amazing information.
Awesome.
And then there will be a small expo as well as portfolio reviews for people. There's going to be an IGDA mentor cafe as well. So it's going to be like a weekend of learning, sharing, have your portfolio checked. Like with these people that are talking, like the attendance is going to be capped at like 100 people for this event. It's very small. And so you'll be able to come learn from leaders, sit one-on-one with them, see some of the games that are being made, get some mentoring or whatever. So when you walk out of that weekend, you're like, I can start a successful indie studio now.
Very cool. And do you envision this something for like students with portfolios, or for people who are already sort of dipping their toes in the industry, or what level do you think it would appeal to?
So it's a really good question. And so I've kind of learned recently, like running different kind of mentor cafes, that people of various levels get a lot out of this. Some people might think, oh, this is great for students. Well, actually, I know people that have been running small studios for 5 years that are having a hard time, that want to grow, that would love to come in and learn from the CEO of Hibernum.
Totally.
So it can be for any levels depending on what you want to learn, because this is like expert advice, right? So I don't imagine it's only going to be students for sure.
That's great. Yeah, no, it sounds like it would be valuable to a lot of different people. How can people get more information or get tickets? Are they already being sold?
No.
Okay, so it's okay. Everyone, chill out. It's all right.
And I've got to be careful too. Like with only 100 tickets, I know that it's going to go pretty quickly.
Definitely.
So I'll let everyone know it's going to be the October 21st and 22nd. Like this is all new information. It's going to be at Karina. This is funny. I was like, okay, I need the cutest venue ever. And I was like, I don't know anything about venues in Montreal except for the massive ones. And so I kind of did some research. I reached out to like about 25 different venues, and this athletic club Atwater, wrote me back, and they were like, we can do this type of event. And I kind of looked at pictures and I was like, this is like the one viewing that I scheduled. So I walked up to this athletic club, which is a big brick building. Karina, it looks like Hogwarts.
Oh, really?
It looks like Hogwarts. It looks like Hogwarts. And the whole time Mike was saying like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And so it's so funny. So we got there and he looked at it and he was like, this is beautiful, but it's going to be too small. And so we walked in and we walked upstairs, and it was like, there was like violins playing and like confetti fell from the ceiling, and it was just like, what? And it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
That's
and
awesome.
There's a fireplace in the corner. But
just bill it as Hogwarts. It's okay.
It's Hogwarts. It's totally Hogwarts.
That's really cool. Montreal's such a belle little city that way.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's adorable. So people will, I guess, get a couple cool experiences out of this.
Yeah. I didn't answer your question either about the tickets.
No, you dodged it artfully.
Tickets will be going on sale. I've just literally finalized all this, so I want you guys to be the first to know.
Awesome.
I'm going to say about a week, but I will blast it out and give people a couple of days of notice for sure. But I'm going to do everything I can to get it up in about a week.
Wonderful. And for those of you who want to follow Jillian directly, just follow at Jillian Mood on Twitter. Probably the best way to get that information. Fantastic. Awesome. So that's all very, very exciting, and sort of pending more updates. But definitely, everyone keep your eyes open for news about the Capital Gaming Expo lineup. She said, Jillian said it's going to be bigger and better. Those other dates I think are super exciting. Although it's well worth the trip to Ottawa for the original Canadian Gaming Expo. I guess it'll be, or Canada's Gaming Expo. Awesome. Yeah. Smart rebrand. I like it. Awesome. So I guess sort of getting back to, I guess, your role with some of this. Obviously, you've taken on a big sort of role in the community as a leader and mentor and sort of organizer and everything else. Do you ever actually make games? Like, is that something that you've ever dabbled in? And I don't know how you find time to do it, but given that you're part of game jams, maybe you just bang it out. But yeah, have you ever sort of played around with actual dev end of GameDev?
So I have tried. It's interesting that you asked that. Like I kind of grew up being like someone who really appreciates, so for example, artwork.
Mhm.
I love artwork. I love going to museums. I have a ton of art. Like I have my own collection. And then when I tried creating art, I was just horrible at it. Like there was no skill set there. And it's very similar to coding. I have tried coding. I love I love game development. I love game developers. I don't know. They're so passionate and it's amazing. So I've tried to learn to code and it's not for me. So
It's
I've
not.
kind of looked at it like, okay, so my role will be to support and help them. Like
Right.
I support and help artists. I support and help developers, find jobs, help their careers, give that, my mission is kind of like, I want to make people's careers and lives amazing.
Right.
And so but it's funny you asked that, because during OJam this year, I was like, I want to, be involved with an OJam team, kind of from beginning to end, in terms of like maybe help them with thinking about how to, things to keep in mind when marketing your game, or, what people, kind of at the end look at, or something like that, which I think would be interesting. So
Right.
I would love to join a game jam team and just kind of be that person to help them in terms of like marketing, like thinking about marketing their game or aspects of that, which I don't know if counts, but I feel it will count.
I think it counts. I think it counts. An embedded marketer. I mean, that's like, if people don't know me, that's kind of what I do. Even though I've participated in a few jams. Yeah, it's loosely affiliated with game development. I consider it sort of development, but maybe around the business end of things. Maybe
Yes,
not the
exactly.
strict game element.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that us laymen can't appreciate what goes into game dev. I kind of feel the same way. I'm kind of in awe of coders. Like I come from a world where coding didn't have a lot of tools. Like we're both sort of an age where people used to code like hardcore, like by hand, by keystroke, from the get-go. So it still amazes me what people can sort of do on their computers. But I play a lot of games, so I sort of appreciate it from the other side. Have there been any games in your life like that have sort of stuck with you? Is there any games that you would say are sort of among your, these are like my favorite games from childhood, or this is a game that like turned me on to video games, or anything like that?
So yes, it's actually funny because I was a big gamer growing up, but I remember kind of my first days of gaming when I don't know how young, but super young. And it was when it was a ColecoVision or Atari, and it was the Jeopardy game. And so when my brother and I and my mom used to play, like the three of us got addicted to it. And I was like I don't know how, 4 or 5 years old. I didn't know anything. So I would just play it all the time, and I would memorize the answers to the Jeopardy question.
Nice.
That's how I won. But I remember a couple of times, I think like the three of us were playing so much, my mom kept us home sick from school one day, so we could play Jeopardy all day. But then,
what a cool mom.
Oh, it was great. It led to other addictions. Like I used to play SimCity. I guess I was in junior high when SimCity on Super Nintendo was out. Karina, I used to like sit in class and like draw out cities I would make when I got home, like fully planned this out. And
that's funny.
But then playing like Zelda and Mario for sure, I was always into. And then the big addiction of 1995 was Command and Conquer Red Alert.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I swear I almost failed my exams from that game. Like
school? What school?
I don't remember.
Oh, that's funny.
And maybe listeners can tweet at me afterwards. Like I'm looking for a game that gives me that same feeling now. That Command and Conquer Red Alert feeling. Like that's the kind of strategy games that I really, really, really like.
Interesting.
So I'm looking for advice on games to start playing that are like that. But definitely I'm very story-based kind of person. Like I don't like quick mobile games. Like I want to get in there and strategize and get excited and build shit. And I want it to be different each time. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now.
Cool. Okay, cool. We'll see if we can get any recommendations for you from our viewers.
That'd be great.
Have you played, I assume you've played, Bendy and the Ink Machine? Is that a lame segue?
I've never heard of it.
What's that? I hear it's kind of cool. For those watching, the reason that we're laughing it up about this is the game that the Meat Leaf Studios created, and it's a horror game. I'm gonna loosely say horror game. If you haven't checked it out, it's worth going checking out because Chapter 1 is free, and it'll give you a really good, solid intro to the world and the atmosphere and what's going on. But I am curious as to what, if any, your role might have been in helping with this game, even if it was just to play it and give feedback during the development process, right? Because it is very different from the type of game that you just described that you like. So.
It's definitely different. I love it. I love the kind of the build up and how interesting it is. The artwork is amazing. And it was awesome too, because I remember the day that Mike was like, oh, I'm going to be kind of working on this fun game for weekend and we'll get it out quickly so we could work on our real game. And, and watching him work on that, and I was like, this looks cool. Like,
yeah.
So like, it was fun because like, obviously like seeing it, like I loved it and I would offer, at different points, like I love this, do this. I've seen things now that, oh my God, Chapter 3 is amazing. But, kind of seeing it and definitely offering advice. But, I remember the first time seeing it play through and I got goosebumps and I love that. And when when Chapter 1 released and, so many YouTubers were playing it, like up until that point, I was like, I didn't get why people watched YouTubers play games. Like, I just didn't get it until I was sitting there watching them play Bendy, and it became another type of addiction. But, Mike and I, like, we would sit and I would make popcorn and we would watch YouTubers play, and it was so fun watching them play and the reactions. And when Chapter 2, like, on release day, we had the day cleared. Like, we were doing nothing except couch, snacks, energy drinks, and watching, and it was amazing. But being able to see that grow and change and having like being able to kind of give advice and things like that and see new updates like has been amazing. And so, when I've been able to sort of help them if they're hiring people on their team and help them with, we do like Jillian Mood and Partners is doing, press for them and social media.
Yeah.
Being a part of that and seeing like, the level of fan engagement and like it's
just
been
through the roof for this game.
It's incredible.
Awesome. Yeah.
And one thing that I'm sort of promoting about these guys is it's like, yeah, it's a small indie studio, but they're doing it the right way. They're taking this great game. They're engaging with their fans. They're taking the fan feedback to use to keep creating in different ways. They're bringing their fans in, whether it's fan art or creating songs for it, like all of it. And it's so positive. Like these guys get emails all day from kids that are like, you're a hero to me. And they respond to all of them. Like, it's such a beautiful experience. And like, now the guys are like, they're supporting, they're sponsoring events and giving back and helping initiatives. And it's like, hey world, you can do it the right way. You don't need to be looking at gimmicks or whatever. Like, make great games, engage with your fans, connect with the industry, help each other out, and you can do well. Like that's possible, and this is an example of that. So I'm really hoping people learn how to do things positively and use that as an inspiration.
That's a really good lesson, and it's like I said, it's exciting for me to see that there's so many, so many, I guess, good people behind the game, both yourself and the development team. As you mentioned, they're kind of doing it right, and they're super involved with their community, which is, in my experience, the key to success in almost any industry, but especially in games, totally. Which I don't have to tell you. Very cool. I guess, on a final note, this has been really great, Jillian. I think we've learned a lot about you. We've learned a lot, I think, of insight about being involved in the industry and maybe ways that people don't typically think. But also very exciting news about CGX upcoming in April, and of course the event coming up in Montreal as well. I guess on a final note, I'm just curious. You've mentioned a few people already, but is there anyone in the industry who you have sort of looked to as a mentor or just someone who is sort of, like you've mentioned a few people who are doing it right. Is there anyone else who you might sort of call out or add to that list? Certainly people who put up, especially if they have good content that people might want to check out. But yeah, anyone who you think has helped you in terms of, learning how to approach this community in the right way?
That's a really good question. I mean, probably if I thought about it, I'd have a million more. One name that definitely jumps to mind is Jason Nguyen's, who's, who founded Girl Force, and he's been a really positive influence as well. There's been a lot of people, through the IGDA that I've seen sort of come around as well that have been very positive. Obviously, Mike has been a huge factor for me. In terms of larger studios, I'm still kind of looking for, and this is actually funny because I arrange so many mentor relationships with people, I've been kind of looking for a mentor for myself. And so I've been kind of looking around in the industry because I think everyone should be learning from a mentor. So I'm still looking for that person. So if you know of anyone, let me know. I might ask you to mentor me on marketing stuff, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, no, anytime. I'm all about the in-kind learning. I think it's one of my favorite things about the game industry. And
Totally.
we talked about this sort of before we went live for the benefit of our Twitch viewers. But yeah, Jillian and I both were sort of talking about how the games industry is one where people are willing to give and take in excess. And much more so than I think other industries that we've both been involved in. So it's refreshing, and it's definitely one of the reasons why it's going so strong here, especially in Canada.
Totally.
Jillian, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so cool getting to know you. You're a really fascinating personality in the games community, as like a cool, fun individual, but just as a hardworking community advocate, we need people like you to do all this crazy work that's outside of game dev itself, because it keeps the community running, and it makes sure that there's a lot of eyeballs and attention on us, which is important for funding and growth and just posterity in general. So thank you so much. For everyone else watching, I definitely appreciate you tuning in.
Your work is great. I love watching your show.
Thanks.
You always ask very interesting questions. I was saying to Karina before that I was like, you hate getting those cookie cutter boring questions, and I was like, Karina's are always really interesting. Like, you really get to know how the person thinks, which is awesome.
And I held back on asking all my really weird questions. We'll do those in the follow-up interview. Yeah, that's for the second interview, not for the first one.
And you have to practice your push-ups.
That's true. Yes. So it'll be our rematch of minds.
Totally.
And muscle. Very cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, this will be up on the GameDevCafe.com, also on our YouTube if you want to check it out after the fact. I think it stays up on Twitch for a little while as well. But I'm Karina. We've been talking with Jillian Mood. We will link up all of these events that we've mentioned, all these great opportunities coming up that she's sort of involved in, and you'll be able to check that out on GameDevCafe.com. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.